What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Football Diary. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the NFL draft cornerbacks, but we're mostly going to be focusing on the first round guys. There's a lot of guys that we really like in later rounds. Benjamin St-Juste, I really like. Paulson Adebo. There's a ton of guys that we can get into. We wanted to focus on the first round guys. We wanted to look at who's in the best spot, how well are they going to be able to do, who's going to be seen as the best, all those types of things. And we're going to be looking at all of them. So before we get into the video, make sure to comment down below your thoughts on these guys. If you have a favorite, if you think a guy's a bust, let us know. Let us know what the order you felt like they should have been drafted in, because I think Matt and I were definitely surprised when the draft happened at some guys being taken before others. But then the last thing before I get into it, there's a possibility that my camera just shuts off randomly during recording. It will get turned on in with less than a second. So just don't be surprised if my screen goes gray for a second. I don't know why it's been happening. It's only been happening today. But Matt, why don't you start us off looking at the cornerbacks? Why don't we just start with who's your favorite guy out of that class? I know you had to do some scouting because the Niners were in search of cornerbacks.
Yeah, I think so. My favorite guy that got taken in the first round, definitely in terms of skill set, just an ability, not bringing an injury, would have been Caleb Farley. Now, Caleb Farley just played. It was his first game on Saturday in 637 days. So this was a guy that was, pretty thought of as a top 10 talent and one of the best defensive players in the class. And then he ended up falling 22 to the Titans. I think they got a complete steal. He's past his physical. He just played. Now, he said that he felt that he played sloppy in his first game back, but I mean, that's pretty expected when you're jumping first off into NFL competition and, the first time you've played in a real football game in over 600 days. So he didn't really get to perform in the offseason. It might not be necessarily this year that he looks like the best guy, but he's definitely my favorite in terms of, all of these guys and just overall talent.
Yeah. I mean, Farley's definitely a guy where at one point in the draft process, it started to look like there was a real shot where he became the first drafted cornerback, over the other guys. He could have been a top 10 pick. And, when it comes to players that have those injury concerns, it's always kind of just do they feel like they're worth taking the risk on it? And some teams felt like it wasn't worth taking the risk. They felt like they'd go with the safer option, which is what the guys taking in front of him, J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain. But overall, still being the third cornerback taken with that injury, that he's dealing with, I think that just shows how high of potential that he has. And him going to Tennessee, I don't know if that's the best spot to go. They haven't been a franchise that's been known for developing cornerbacks, especially recently. The best defensive back that they've had in recent memory would be Kevin Byrd, but he's a safety, so it's difficult to kind of judge that. And they had him for a little bit when they had Dean Pease, who's a phenomenal defensive coordinator that's now in Atlanta. But overall, I think Farley in 5 years' time, that's when we'll really get to know whether or not the draft pick was worth it when it comes to contract time. I think if you want to make a judgment after 2 years, 3 years, Farley's probably not going to be that guy. But if you look 10, 15 years and there's a very good chance that he is that, oh, wow, how did he fall that far? How were these guys taking over him? But for me, my favorite guy in this class, I think most people's favorite guy was Pat Surtain. I felt like he could have been taken. Honestly, he could have been taken top 4, in my opinion. It was just whether or not Atlanta wanted to go with Kyle Pitts or not. I don't fault them for taking Kyle Pitts. Dude's an absolute monster. But if they went defense, I felt like Pat Surtain was that guy. I mean, just Alabama corners are just, Matt and I talked about this before we ever even recorded, and just Alabama corners, they're at an advantage over every other college cornerback when they come into the NFL. Because if you want to look at the wide receivers that he was going up against every day in practice, let's name off a few. Oh, Jalen Waddle. Oh, he was a top 10 pick. Devontae Smith, top 10 pick. Jerry Jeudy, first round pick. I don't think he was top 10. He might have been top 10, borderline top 10. Just those are just 3 guys right there. Right there. Those are better than most of the players in the entire draft class. Those 3 guys that I named are literally the best 3 wide receivers in draft classes other than Jamar Chase And oh wait, he also got to play against Jamar Chase because he was in the SEC.
You forgot Henry Ruggs, who was the first receiver taken.
Another guy that I guess is okay, just absolutely stacked. And so he gets to come into the league and he starts playing against guys. He's in Tennessee, and luckily, or I'm sorry, I was thinking about Caleb Farley. He is in Denver, and he gets to face some decent guys in practice. He gets to continue against Jerry Jeudy, and then he also gets to go up against Cortland Sutton. That's a very solid, gets to practice. But when he plays in the preseason, scrubs. Like he is downgrading in the NFL caliber when he gets to preseason. That's why when he goes against the Vikings, he's able to allow 0 receptions, get a pick, get a great swat. There goes the camera. Hopefully it turns back on. There we go. I don't know why that happens, but I mean, and if you look recently, just Alabama corners that have been drafted, like Marlon Humphrey, he dominated when he came into the league. Xavier McKinney was a safety drafted last year. I felt like he played pretty solid, but I expect, safety is a little bit different, tougher to just dominate as a rookie, but corners from Alabama, they're just really good. And he's maybe the best corner Alabama has had in a very long time. And when Marlon Humphrey's sitting there, I think he was 38th on the NFL 100 list, which is a weird list, but very, very good cornerback. That's high standard. So I loved Pat Surtain. But Matt, what did you think about him?
I like Pat Surtain a lot. I was very surprised. I figured that Farley would fall quite a bit because that kind of came out a couple weeks before the draft. Hey, expect Caleb Farley to go a lot later than maybe his talent says. But Pat Surtain always seemed like he was going to be the first guy off the board. At least I felt like that was the case. And then, we see J.C. Horn, and I think J.C. Horn is a first-round caliber corner. But I was absolutely shocked that the Panthers took him that early. And that's not I like what they've been doing, what they've been building. I didn't love the pick just because I do like JC Horn a lot as a player, but just the spot, I feel like you could have got some other guys there. And I felt like they took the third most talented corner in terms of talent at 8. And so I thought that was a little bit early. But I mean, the signs for both him and Surtain are that they've been playing really well early on. Everything that I've heard, at least. I would guess, McConnell, with you, I think Surtain will probably be the guy that initially starts as the best. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't know. Do you think Surtain is going to be the best to start, right?
Yeah, I do think that Patrick Surtain is going to be the best guy out of this draft class, especially early on. Just looking at it, it may not seem like he'll be the best if you just look at the numbers. Oh, wow, this guy allowed this many yards, this many receptions. But that's partially due to the players that he's going to be playing against. You look at his division, he's got to go against Tyreek Hill. He's got to go against Keenan Allen, 2 of the toughest players to guard at the wide receiver position. Luckily, when he goes against the Raiders, he's not going to be facing too difficult. But, they've got Hunter Renfrow and they've got Henry Ruggs, 2 decent players. But, then you also look at J.C. Horn. He's also in a tough division at wide receiver. Mike Evans, Michael Thomas. I mean, heck, the entire Bucs roster you could name off as good wide receivers. So overall, I think that it's going to be very interesting. Calvin Ridley as well, but I just think that he is that level of player. And Matt, like you said earlier, talking about J.C. Horn, I like J.C. Horn. I had him as number 2. I had him above Farley, but I was very shocked when the Panthers took him. I didn't think cornerback was really the spot for them to go in the first round. For me, I really thought that Micah Parsons should have been that selection. That's the guy that I really thought fit the best, just because he's coming in there and he's good. They're lacking at cornerback. So he's going to be asked to just try his best, and it's going to be really hard. And that's
what you're saying?
For Horn, yes. It's going to be very difficult for J.C. Horn to look good because those guys that he's going to be at, I mean, he's probably the number 1. Maybe he's number 2, but even the number 2 wide receivers in that division are very, very good. And so it's going to be tough for him. However, out of those 3, I really like Pat Surtain, but there are some other guys later in this round. I think Newsome could absolutely be a monster that could be a sleeper best corner from the draft because he's going into a secondary that already has Denzel Ward, who is a phenomenal young cornerback. And then they have Greedy Williams, who hasn't played a ton. He's had some injury problems, but he's supposed to be very good as well. So that's a cornerback trio right there that could be very, very deadly. So he could be a sleeper guy that is a part of a great defense as that third piece maybe moves into that 2. And he's a cornerback out of Northwestern, and I really liked him coming out. I was, as a Ravens fan, I was kind of disappointed he went to the Browns, but
it is interesting because Greedy Williams, like the questions have never been about the talent for him. Like he's a very, very good player too. I didn't know a ton on Newsome coming out. I did like Eric Stokes a lot. But do you think Newsome will get a lot of playing time there? Or does he have to be, I mean, will he probably be the nickel? Is that what you're kind of expecting?
I think we'll get playing time. I think he'll probably shift around. I don't know Ward's abilities on being able to play in the slot. I don't know Greedy's abilities on being able to play in the slot, but I'm sure in the division that they're in, you got to play against the Steelers, Juju, Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. You got to make sure you can cover those 3 guys. So he'll definitely be involved. They'll definitely need him to play. And then, also even like the Bengals, they've got, 3 solid wide receivers, Boyd, Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And even the Ravens, Boykin, I'm sorry, I said Boykin, Bateman, Hollywood, and Sammy Watkins. Like those are 3 cornerback groups that have all 3 solid players. Now, the Ravens one is a little bit lower, probably, but overall there's still 3 guys that you make sure that you need to guard. So I think he will actually get some good playing time, and he'll be going and getting some really good opportunities to show what he has. So yeah, I expect him to play, but you brought up Eric Stokes.
I like Eric Stokes a lot.
And he used to play across from Jair.
Well, and I was going to say mainly because he can potentially be the guy that takes Kevin King's spot. I don't believe that's actually going to be the case. I think you're more likely to see Stokes kind of like some people viewed him as a safety coming out. I thought he'd be a really good inside out corner where he kind of does both. So maybe they deal with him. I don't know exactly how they're going to use him either. Like that's the thing with both, like a lot of corners, like you don't really know where they want him. Like there's not many guys where it's like, oh, he only plays outside or he only plays inside. I mean, a lot of the guys can do both. Eric Stokes is definitely one of those guys, I think. So it really just depends on the preference, but I would like him to be their number 2. I think he's good enough. I think he's a really slept on player that, he's a 4-year starter in the SEC, played multiple spots, very, very versatile. He's a guy that can really help a Packers secondary that's not spectacular outside of Jair Alexander.
Yeah, I think that he's definitely got a spot. That's a good secondary. If they're able to pair Jair with Eric Stokes, that's something that is much better than Kevin King. Kevin King, I'm sorry, he lost the Packers the playoffs. They were in the Super Bowl if not for Kevin King. I despise Kevin King for that. They should have trounced the Buccaneers. I'll never forgive Kevin King. But I don't know. Is there any other points that you want to bring up about these cornerbacks, or do you think that's pretty solid?
I'll say there's probably going to be, because we're only talking about the first round guys, there's going to be some other guys. I have a 49ers show, Diamador Lenore. He's a 5th rounder. He's like flashing a ton. Like there's going to be a lot of guys like that, especially with the COVID year where guys are opting out, guys aren't playing. So there's going to be some other names in the discussion as well, especially because McConnell, your camera is going insane right now.
I know.
But especially because like a lot of guys are kind of afterthoughts, or a lot of guys don't have that chance like in their either junior or senior year to like really flash, and their development kind of gets affected. So we can potentially see some guys that are late bloomers from the mid rounds, maybe guys that don't even, play on their initial team that much. And they go to like the second spot and have this like revitalized career. So I definitely think there's gonna be more guys than, just the 5 that we discussed today. But my favorite out of this class, Farley, then I put Surtain, then I put Horn after that. So those would be my 3 choices of who I think will have, the best careers moving forward. And for this year, I do think that Surtain will have the best year out of any of the corners, really out of any of the corners in the class, because he is a really, really special talent, and he is in a phenomenal spot.
Absolutely. Well, make sure to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you agree with us, disagree with us? If you have anything that you want us to talk about, please let us know. We want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Subscribe for current football content, and we will see all of you again tomorrow.